Most people believe they are losing money mainly through obvious channels, taxes, inflation, or poor investment returns. That assumption is incomplete. For many households, a significant portion of wealth erosion happens quietly every month through fees that feel small, normal, and unavoidable. These costs rarely trigger alarm, yet over time, they materially reduce savings, investment returns, and financial flexibility. The real problem is not that people overspend recklessly. It is that they underestimate how much these recurring fees compound against them. Because the amounts are modest and often deducted automatically, they escape scrutiny. People assume they are managing money responsibly because they budget, avoid large mistakes, and follow standard advice. Meanwhile, money continues to leak out through systems designed to be frictionless and invisible. Consider a simple example. A household pays $35 per month in various account maintenance fees, subscription charges tied to financial services, and small transaction costs. Separately, they lose another 0.75% per year in investment related fees they rarely see itemized. Individually, these numbers appear insignificant. Together, they represent thousands of dollars over a decade. At a modest 5% annual return, $200 per month lost to fees does not just cost $24,000 over 10 years. It costs closer to $31,000 in foregone compounded value. Over 25 years, the gap widens substantially. Most people think they are doing the right things because these fees are framed as the cost of convenience or professionalism. Banks advertise low monthly charges. Investment platforms emphasize simplicity while bearing expense ratios and spreads in disclosures. Subscription based financial tools promise optimization but quietly add recurring costs. None of these decisions feel like mistakes. They feel reasonable, even responsible. The logic failure is assuming that small, recurring costs are harmless. In reality, recurring fees behave differently from one time expenses. They compound negatively. Each dollar lost today is a dollar that cannot compound tomorrow. Over long periods, this creates a structural drag on wealth that is difficult to detect without deliberate analysis. The consequences are measurable. Lower net investment returns mean longer working years. Reduced cash flow flexibility increases reliance on credit during disruptions. Emergency funds grow more slowly, if at all. People respond by saving more aggressively or taking additional risk without realizing that part of the problem is embedded in the system they already use. Importantly, this is not about blaming individuals for failing to read fine print. The system is designed to normalize these costs. Statements aggregate them. Interfaces minimize their visibility. Marketing emphasizes gross performance rather than net outcomes. As a result, many people believe their financial results reflect market conditions or personal discipline alone. They do not see the structural leakage working against them each month. At this stage, it is not necessary to name every fee or propose immediate fixes. The first step is understanding that wealth erosion is often quiet, incremental, and institutional. Until these silent drains are identified and quantified, efforts to save more or invest better will produce weaker results than expected. Recognizing the problem clearly is the foundation for any effective solution. To understand why silent fees persist and remain largely unnoticed, it is necessary to examine how modern financial systems interact with income structure and everyday behavior. The issue is not a lack of intelligence or discipline. It is the combination of automated systems, fragmented decisions, and the absence of a clear framework for evaluating long-term cost. Most households receive income in predictable intervals and allocate it through a series of automated channels. Bills are paid automatically, subscriptions renew without review, and investment contributions are set and forgotten. Automation is efficient, but it also reduces visibility. When money moves without deliberate confirmation, small costs are rarely questioned. Over time, this creates an environment where fees are treated as fixed facts rather than choices. Behavior reinforces this structure. People tend to evaluate expenses individually, not cumulatively. A $12 monthly fee for a banking service seems harmless. A 0.60% fund expense ratio appears negligible. A slightly wider bid ask spread on frequent trades is barely noticed. The problem is that these costs rarely exist in isolation. When combined across accounts, platforms, and years, they form a persistent drag that compounds against growth. Consider a common scenario. An individual earns $85,000 per year and contributes $800 per month to retirement accounts. Their investment platform charges an average all-in cost of 0.9% annually through fund expenses and administrative fees. Over 30 years, assuming a 6% gross return, the difference between paying 0.9% and 0.2% in total fees is not marginal. The higher cost structure can reduce the final portfolio value by well over $200,000. This outcome is not driven by poor investing, it is driven by cost structure. A second example involves cash management. A household keeps most of its money in a low yield checking account while paying monthly account fees and overdraft protection charges. At the same time, inflation reduces purchasing power. The combined effect of explicit fees and implicit loss through low yields results in negative real returns. Standard advice often focuses on budgeting or increasing savings rates, but neither addresses the underlying inefficiency. Saving more into a structurally leaky system simply increases the amount being drained. This is why standard advice frequently underperforms. Recommendations like track your expenses or invest consistently assume that the underlying system is neutral. It is not. Without addressing recurring costs embedded in financial products, behavioral improvements deliver diminishing returns. People work harder, save more, and yet see less progress than expected. Another reason these fees persist is incentive misalignment. Financial institutions earn revenue from complexity and scale, not from minimizing customer costs. Fee structures are often layered, making it difficult to identify the total impact without deliberate effort. Most disclosures meet legal requirements but do not support practical understanding. As a result, even financially literate individuals underestimate their cumulative cost. The absence of a system for reviewing and minimizing recurring fees allows this leakage to continue indefinitely. Households revisit large decisions like buying a home or changing jobs, but rarely audit the infrastructure through which money flows every month. Over long periods, this oversight becomes expensive. Understanding this deeper dynamic shifts the focus from personal discipline to structural efficiency. Silent fees exist because they fit naturally into automated, fragmented financial systems. Until that structure is examined and redesigned, the problem will persist regardless of effort or income level. When silent fees are examined over time, several consistent mistakes appear. These are not extreme errors or reckless behavior. They are normal decisions that feel rational in isolation, but produce weak outcomes when repeated for years. The damage comes from duration, not intensity. The first mistake is ignoring small percentages. Many people dismiss fees below 1% as irrelevant. In reality, percentages applied continuously to growing balances have a measurable impact. Consider a retirement account with $1,000 contributed monthly for 30 years. At a 6% gross return with total fees of 0.3%, the final balance is roughly $950,000. Increase total fees to 1.2%, and the outcome drops to around $720,000. The difference is over $230,000. Income did not change. Contribution discipline did not change. Only the fee structure did. The second mistake is treating fees as fixed and unavoidable. Monthly account charges, fund expenses, platform fees, and payment costs are often accepted without review. Over 5 years, $75 per month in combined fees equals $4,500. Over 20 years, that same amount becomes $18,000 in direct costs. When compounded at even modest returns, the real cost exceeds $30,000. Most people would never approve a single expense of that size, yet they accept it quietly through fragmentation. The third mistake is focusing on gross performance instead of net outcomes. Investors often evaluate success based on market returns or headline fund performance. What matters is what remains after costs. A portfolio earning 7% before fees but losing 1% annually to expenses delivers the same long-term result as a 6% market. Over decades, that gap determines how many years a person must work. The consequence is delayed financial independence, not because markets failed, but because efficiency was ignored. The fourth mistake is assuming higher income offsets inefficiency. This belief is common among professionals and high earners. In practice, higher income often increases exposure to fees through more complex financial products and higher balances subject to cost. A household earning $150,000 but losing 1% annually on $500,000 in combined assets gives up $5,000 per year. A lower income household with efficient structure may retain more of what it earns. The difference is not earnings power, it is decision quality. The long-term consequences compound gradually. After 5 years, the effect feels minor. After 10 years, progress appears slower than expected. After 20 years, the gap becomes structural. Lower balances reduce compounding, which further widens the difference. People respond by saving more aggressively or taking additional risk, often increasing complexity and fees further. The key point is that silent fees do not cause visible failure. They cause underperformance. They quietly convert effort into average results. Two individuals with identical income and savings discipline can end up in very different positions purely due to cost structure. The deciding factor is not how much they earn, but how efficiently their system allows money to grow. Recognizing these mistakes reframes the problem. The issue is not motivation, intelligence, or discipline. It is the cumulative effect of decisions left unexamined. Without addressing this, long-term financial outcomes will remain weaker than expected, regardless of income level. The solution to silent fees is not aggressive optimization or constant switching of products. It is the deliberate simplification and control of the financial infrastructure through which money moves every month. The objective is to reduce friction, eliminate unnecessary layers, and ensure that returns belong primarily to the account holder, not intermediaries. The first element of the solution is a full fee audit. This means listing every recurring financial cost tied to banking, investing, and payments, monthly account fees, fund expense ratios, platform charges, advisory fees, and transaction costs should be identified and converted into annual dollar amounts. Seeing costs as yearly totals rather than small monthly figures changes decision-making. A $15 monthly fee becomes $180 per year. A 1% investment fee on a $300,000 portfolio becomes $3,000 annually. This reframes fees as active expenses competing with savings and investments. The second element is structural consolidation. Complexity increases fees, multiple accounts, overlapping services, and layered products create redundant costs. Consolidating banking relationships, reducing unnecessary subscriptions, and simplifying investment holdings lowers total expenses without increasing risk. For investing, this often means using broad, low-cost funds rather than actively managed products with higher ongoing charges. The logic is not that active management always fails, but that higher costs require higher performance just to break even. Over long periods, that advantage is rare. The third element is prioritizing net returns over convenience. Convenience is valuable, but it has a price. The goal is not to eliminate convenience entirely, but to choose it intentionally. For example, paying a slightly higher trading fee for infrequent planned transactions may be cheaper than using a platform that encourages constant activity with hidden costs. Similarly, keeping excess cash in accounts with minimal yield carries an implicit cost when inflation is considered. Moving cash to higher yield, low-fee alternatives improves efficiency without adding risk. The system works because it is rules-based rather than reactive. Fees are reviewed annually, not emotionally. Products are evaluated by their total cost and function, not branding or promises. Investments are held long-term. reducing transaction costs and minimizing behavioral errors. This creates a stable structure that benefits from time rather than fighting it. Importantly, this approach is conservative. It does not rely on market timing, leverage, or complex strategies. Reducing fees produces a guaranteed improvement in net outcomes. A reduction of 0.7% in annual costs is equivalent to increasing returns by the same amount without taking additional risk. Over decades, this effect compounds reliably. Stability comes from predictability. Lower fees mean more consistent growth, fewer surprises, and greater clarity about progress. The system scales with income and assets. As balances grow, the benefit of efficiency increases. This is why controlling silent fees is not a one-time fix, but a permanent advantage embedded in the financial structure. The result is not dramatic in the short term. Over time, however, more of each dollar earned remains under control, compounding for the individual rather than being siphoned away quietly. All the elements discussed can be combined into a single, repeatable system designed to stop silent leakage and preserve long-term growth. The objective of this system is not constant optimization, but durable efficiency. Once established, it requires minimal ongoing effort and produces measurable benefits over time. The structure has 4 steps. First, identify all recurring financial fees and convert them into annual dollar amounts. This includes banking fees, investment expenses, platform charges, advisory costs, and transaction-related costs. Annualizing fees exposes their true scale and makes them comparable to savings and investment contributions. Second, reduce unnecessary layers. Consolidate accounts where possible, eliminate redundant services, and favor simpler products with transparent pricing. Third, anchor decisions on net outcomes rather than advertised features or gross returns. What matters is what remains after all costs. Fourth, implement an annual review process. Once per year, reassess the system to ensure costs remain aligned with value received. The timeline of change is gradual but predictable. After 1 year, the primary improvement is clarity. Total annual fees are known, cash flow improves slightly, and progress is easier to track. For example, reducing combined costs by $150 per month frees $1,800 per year. That amount alone may not feel transformative, but it compounds. After 5 years, the effect becomes visible. Assuming $1,800 per year redirected into long-term investments at a 5% return, the accumulated value approaches $10,000. More importantly, the system prevents future leakage as balances grow. The same percentage savings applied to a larger base produces increasing benefit without additional effort. After 10 years, the difference is structural. The household retains tens of thousands of dollars that would otherwise have been lost quietly. Investment balances are higher, liquidity is stronger, and reliance on income is reduced. At this stage, the benefit is not only financial. Decision-making improves because uncertainty is lower and outcomes are more predictable. The immediate actions required are specific and practical. Start by reviewing bank statements, investment disclosures, and account summaries for recurring charges. List them in one place and calculate their annual cost. Next, identify which fees deliver clear value and which do not. Replace high-cost, low-value components with simpler alternatives. Finally, automate contributions so the recovered cash flow is directed towards savings or investments rather than absorbed by spending. This approach does not depend on market conditions, income growth, or exceptional discipline. It works under conservative assumptions and rewards consistency. Reducing silent fees increases net returns without increasing risk. That makes it one of the few financial improvements with a guaranteed positive impact. The conclusion is straightforward. Wealth erosion is often quiet, not dramatic. By addressing the structure through which money flows, individuals regain control over outcomes. Over time, efficiency compounds in their favor. This is not a shortcut. It is a durable adjustment that improves financial results steadily and predictably.